Every year, thousands of people are reported missing. While the majority of missing persons cases are resolved, either by finding the person alive or dead, many are never seen again. These cases strike the interest of people everywhere. How do people just vanish into thin air? Where do they go? So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at these 3 mysterious disappearances. The disappearance of Aaron Hedges. Originally from Bozeman, Aaron Hedges was a hunter, and along with his friends Joe Depew and Greg Leitner, they ventured to the Crazy Mountains in Montana in September of 2014. Equipped with 2 horses and a mule, the group of 3's initial plan was to spend a week around the Cottonwood Lake Trail and create a base camp at Campfire Lake. Well prepared, Aaron was armed with a bow and arrows and a handgun. His fellow hunters, Joe Depew and Greg Leitner, carried rifles. On September 3rd, 2014, the hunters set off. Despite being well prepared, the mule that was carrying their supplies was spooked and ended up throwing their supplies off the trail. It's important to note this included Aaron's sleeping bag. It wasn't until the 5th of September that Aaron decided he should try and replace his lost sleeping bag and set off with a plan to shelter within the group's hunting camp from their trip the year before and recover a cache containing a sleeping bag. However, Depew and Leitner insisted he return to camp before nightfall, as at night that area can become dangerous, and Aaron agreed to return to camp that night. Aaron would not return that evening. At around 4 p.m. that day, Joe and Greg tried contacting Aaron via their walkie-talkies. These were Garmin walkie-talkies, and it actually displayed each of their GPS positions. To the rest of the group's surprise, Aaron's GPS position showed that he was going the complete wrong direction and he was heading northeast. Unfortunately, this would be the last time they saw Aaron's GPS position. After Aaron had still not returned on the 6th of September, Joe and Greg had come to the assumption Aaron was indeed missing. This was further unsettling when on the 7th of September, a snowstorm swept through the area, plummeting temperatures and unleashing at least 18 inches of snow across the area. Despite this realization, it wasn't until the 8th of September that Aaron was reported missing by his wife. Aaron's friends insisted they didn't report him missing because he was experienced in the area and also armed. The Park County Search and Rescue was tasked with finding Aaron, and Corporal Greg Todd, who was in charge, spoke of how this lack of urgency was strange and that he wouldn't have waited as long as Joe and Greg did to report Aaron missing. The official search for Aaron was drastically hindered due to the aforementioned snowstorm, making it practically impossible to search on foot. However, eventually dog and horse teams as well as 59 ground crew, along with the National Guard and helicopters, joined the search for the missing Aaron. It wasn't until the 9th of September the search and rescue teams finally had a breakthrough. Aaron's boots were found along with a water container, and a nearby fire pit was found too. This was it though. There was nothing else in that area. What's truly bizarre is search and rescue had swept the same spot the day before and had found nothing. Furthermore, given the severe cold weather, it seems very strange that Aaron would take his boots off and leave them. He wouldn't have made it very far without them either. This was the only hard evidence until the 22nd of September, when officials involved decided that the search and rescue presence be reduced, awaiting additional information. There was no breakthrough in this case until, in 2015, Roger Beslanovich stumbled across Aaron Hedges' backpack and clothing whilst visiting family. The bag contained Aaron's gun and driving license, along with his bow and clothing. It appeared that smaller animals had been trying to get into the bag, as small holes were present all over it. It was then, on August 8, 2016, that at a nearby ranch, trailgoers found a human skull. With this new information, law enforcement in the area began a full-scale search on the area the skull was found and managed to find most of Aaron's skeleton within just a 70-yard area. Aaron's cell phone was found on his body, but despite best efforts, it was too corroded after spending 2 years outside on the trail. This case is mysterious for many reasons. Given the route it's believed he took, it's not understood why he went this way. After all, Aaron was an experienced outdoorsman, and this was a route he should have avoided. Him leaving his boots despite being in heavy snow, or the fact that where Aaron was found was within view of nearby buildings and not too far from a road, why didn't he seek help? Though it's believed Aaron didn't go for shelter due to not wanting to get caught for trespassing. The disappearance of Bart Schleyer. Bart Schleyer was an avid outdoorsman and had completed a master's degree in wildlife biology. After he finished his degree, Bart worked for Fish and Game and the interagency grizzly bear study team in Montana. His job, along with the rest of his team, was to study grizzly bears' reaction to coming across humans in the wild. During his research, he would camp out in the wilderness for sometimes months at a time. On these trips, he would pack meat as grizzly bait and cable used for foot snares. Bart Schleyer practically lived outdoors, always wanting to study and be in the wilderness. He would use bow and arrows and was very experienced as a whole. The 14th of September 2004 was Bart Schleyer's last known contact with a float plane that had dropped him off in Canada's Yukon Territory. For this trip, Bart left carrying enough food for 2 weeks, an inflatable raft, and camping equipment. 2 weeks later, the same plane returned to pick Bart up, but he wasn't there. After being officially reported missing on the 30th of September, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police initiated a full-scale search and rescue, but didn't find Schleyer. Only some food at his camp, and his inflatable raft was found half a mile away from his campsite. With the weather turning severe in the area, the police believed Bart hiked up to the nearby highway. After this disappointing conclusion, a friend of Bart Schleyer, Dib Williams, and pilot Wayne Curry decided to fly out to the camp after the search was over to investigate further. They then found Bart's tent along with his backpack, radio, bear repellent, and a knife. Not believing that Schleyer would leave all this equipment behind and getting more worried for Schleyer's well-being, Williams, accompanied by Warner Curry, set out the next day to continue their search. After finding Schleyer's bow and arrows and a camouflage face mask with blood on, they decided to call the Royal Canadian Mounted Police back to search the area and investigate further. The police, as well as Yukon conservation officers and other volunteers, ventured back to the area on the 3rd of October. Around 60 meters or so from the location the bow and arrow was found, some clothing, a camera, and part of a skull were found. The skull was identified as that of Bart Schleyer, though no more of his body was found. Grizzly bear droppings found in the immediate vicinity led to the theory that Schleyer was the victim of a grizzly bear attack. However, conflicting opinions and lack of clothing found with bone fragments in the droppings, the fact that bears usually bury kills and no sign of a struggle led to skepticism of a bear attack being the cause. In addition, those who knew him believed he was too experienced in the wilderness to be caught off guard, and the fact that if it was a bear attack, his nearby camp would likely have been raided by the bear for food too. Furthermore, bears normally go for the head when attacking people, and no tooth marks were found on his skull. The disappearance of Laura Bradbury. The final case we're going to talk about today is the heartbreaking disappearance of Laura Bradbury. 3-year-old Laura Bradbury, along with her 2 parents and older brother, were camping in the Joshua Tree National Park in 1984. It was on October 18th that Laura, along with her then 8-year-old brother Travis, went to the portable restrooms at the campground they were staying at. Travis left Laura outside whilst he used the restroom. By the time he had come out, Laura was gone. A search party of 250 people, with the assistance of helicopters and dogs, scoured the national park for Laura. After no breakthrough within 3 days, the police ended their search. Despite this, the Bradbury family showed no sign of stopping, handing out millions of flyers and even appearing on national TV to get the word out. They also set up a dedicated hotline for any information. A bearded man thought to be in his 50s, described as pot-bellied, with a blue van, was seen around the area right before Laura disappeared, and then later near Burns Canyon. Michael, Laura's father, began to lose faith in the police and slammed them for not following up enough on tips coming through, telling reporters that the police were incompetent or lazy or both, and even went as far to suggest a cover-up. Michael then found out about Toby Santangelo and Clifford LaVille, and the fact that they supposedly told police information regarding the suspected kidnapper, but it was apparently investigated and deemed not credible. These 2 men were then found killed shortly after coming forward. 2 years later, in 1986, a child's skull was found a couple of miles away from the campsite. However, it was never able to be proven it was Laura's. However, new tests were carried out on the skull in 1990, and they found the skull was a 99% match to Laura. Since 2009, Michael has been requesting the transfer of the skull found to a mortuary. But because there has yet to be a death certificate issued, the remains cannot be released. During an interview in 2010, Michael said that he was shown two completely different skulls during the investigation. A smaller partial skull shortly after the remains were found, and a larger full skull later on in the investigation. Also in a report on tests carried out, whilst the skull was a match in one DNA test, there were 3 other tests carried out, including one using hair from Laura's hairbrush, did not match the skull. What happened to Laura Bradbury remains a mystery to this day. But what do you make of these mysterious disappearances? Be sure to let us know your thoughts in the comment section below and help us by growing this community while working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.